Hey, I'm Jay Kumar, the BassBlaster, and this is your Seafoam Top 5 of the Week in Bass Fishing. Number 1.
40,500,000 all in.
Raise all in.
Of course James Bond goes all in because he's James Bond. And it makes sense that Berkley would go all in with forward-facing sonar baits because they've been watching fish react to baits in their secret Iowa lab for decades. And now forward-facing sonar comes out where everyone else can do that too. In other words, Berkley feels like they're ideally suited to make forward-facing sonar baits, and they are running down that road, man. At NASA last week, they launched 2 new forward-facing sonar baits, the Finisher and the Credge. That now makes 3 forward-facing science baits they've made, including the Power Switch, which they released last year. There's way too much to say about all these baits and how they were developed right here, but you can get all the details in the juicy BassBlaster email.
Juicy.
But here's a thumbnail on them. Now the Finisher is kind of a hard bait version of the Power Switch, but not exactly. And each of them have about at least a half a dozen different actions you can impart to them. Now Credge, K-R-E-J, is jerk spelled backwards.
I get it, yes, very clever.
Because the Credge is kind of like a backwards jerk bait. When you jerk it, it actually goes up in the water column, and we all know that our favorite fish like to feed up. Then when you drop your rod tip or give it slack, it shimmies back down. Man, I'm real excited to fish brush and structure with that deal. Here's Berkley's head bait designer, Dan Spangler, with an overview of what these baits do and what you can do with them.
These 2 new Berkley hard baits are designed to be fished throughout the entire water column. They're optimized and designed specifically with forward-facing sonar in mind, so you, the angler, have the final ability based on your rod cadence to trigger that reaction bite. Now with forward-facing sonar, you have the ability to watch the fish in real time. You can adjust the cadence of these new Berkley hard baits based on the mood and behavior and activity of those fish in response to your lure. Ultimately, you as the angler have the final say, and you impart that final action that triggers an innate strike response.
There you go, number 2. Just what are forward-facing sonar baits?
It's the next big thing. We'll talk about it later.
Well, at first, forward-facing sonar baits were anything that showed up well on forward-facing sonar and could be used to catch suspended fish, like a little swim bait. But as you just saw, we're getting far beyond that now.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
You got it, Captain Stubing. Okay, so what are forward-facing sonar baits right now? Well, my take on it is they are fished through the entire water column, top to bottom. They have actions that are chill to aggro, basically. You can do anything with it, or many different things with it. Baits that can stay in the strike zone longer, and anglers, fishermen, can manipulate the baits ourselves watching the screen to get the fish to react to them. Now, I thought that was pretty good, but walleye pro John Hoyer, who was involved in designing some of the new forward-facing sonar baits for Berkley, had a lot more insightful take on it, I thought. Let's check it out. He says forward-facing sonar baits are easy to cast into the wind. He likes to point his boat into the wind when he's using forward-facing sonar for the best boat control, because of course you want to be able to present that bait properly. It's a bait that shows up great on the screen so he can see the bait in all conditions like wind and waves. It's a bait that gets down quickly because as soon as you see the fish, it moves, or your boat moves, so you need a bait that gets to the fish quickly. He wants a versatile bait where you can work at aggressive to neutral action depending on the mood of the fish. And what he calls finishing moves, a bait that has finishing moves so you can change the bait's action when it's right in the fish's face to get it to commit. Now that's pretty cool. Having said all that, for sure, traditional limited range, or whatever you want to call them, baits like crankbaits, topwaters, jigs, you name it, will catch bass because they bite just about anything. You gotta love them, man. Number 3.
This is crazy, this is crazy, this is crazy.
Man, some people were losing their squash last year when guys on the 2 top tours were using 2 to maybe even 3 forward-facing sonar transducers and multiple large screens. Well, welcome to 2024. This year they're gonna get crazier than Tom Cruise. Why? Man, I'm hearing that some guys are gonna be running 5 or maybe 6 transducers, 4 or 5 of which will be forward-facing sonar. And there's even bigger screens and those things known as bass brakes or crappie brakes. If you don't know what those brakes are, they're basically reverse trolling motors on the stern to stop you on a dime if you're shining your forward-facing sonar on a fish. Just to give you a flavor, here's what a couple top pros are running, and their setups are conservative.
2 Garmin scopes on the trolling motor. I got a 10-inch helix up here for Bassmaster and a 22-inch NBT, which I'm gonna run double scopes on.
Of course, I've got a Mega Live here on the trolling motor. But then you'll see I've also got one of the Railblazer, the live pole out here, and I've got a Mega Live attached to it.
It should be a real interesting year. Then again, it always is. I mean, will all this stuff hold up on the water for a full season? Will some guys have brain overload out there? Do you need to see every brush pile in the lake at once?
Yes. Yes, I do.
One thing's for sure, it's... Hey, let's see what happens, man. It'll be fun. Number 4. Well, on the one hand, you have forward-facing sonar and finessier type stuff as a trend. On the other hand, the other trend is
Big stuff.
everybody thinks big swim baits, and for sure that's a trend that seems like it's never going away. And do you remember when crankbaits like the Strike King 10XD came out? That thing is huge. Well, Missile Baits, John Cruise's company, just came out with Ike's Monster Jig. It only comes in 1 and 1.5 ounces, and it has a 10-aught hook. Now, it used to be that a 10-aught hook was only fished in fresh water by those guys who do that World's Strongest Man competition. I guess Mike Iaconelli and John Cruise have been hitting the gym and got inspired, man. With that 10-aught hook, it's definitely a big fish bait, but...
Where's the beef?
Well, ma'am, it's right here. That's the Magnum Baits Beef Craw, almost 5 inches of ginormous craw trailer that looks like it has real good action even on this regular size jig. That deal should look like a 32-ounce porterhouse to the fish, or maybe a surf and turf. Number 5. 40 and 50 pound limits? Wow, yeah, it just happened at Caney Lake in Louisiana. If that name rings a bell, it's because Major League Fishing's Bass Pro Tour went there, or has gone there recently for a couple years, and really spanked the big ones. Randy Howell caught a 10 plus, and a bunch of guys caught 6s on up. That lake's been around for a while, but the last 4 or 5 years, it's really been a big bass factory. Word is that's because of hydrilla and Florida strain bass. Anyhow, it's no secret what's up there, so folks who can get there go there to hunt hogs. 2 groups of folks who went there in December found some incredible limits. One was in a tournament. All 5 were caught by University of Louisiana Monroe bass team member Connor Nimrod. That's 42.10 pounds with a 10-pound kicker. Now, he caught them all and more, cranking a pre-spawn spot with a Bomber fat-free shad in Foxy Shad. That is a killer pre-spawn and big fish crankbait. Now, shortly after that, a couple youngsters went there and caught a 50-pound limit with a 13-plus kicker. That was not in a tournament, but still great. And they caught it on a V&M football jig with a Croco-Gator creature-type trailer. They didn't specify. Now, can those limits be topped? 5 fish, 50-plus pounds? Can we get to a 60-pound limit? At that lake, for sure. Glad to see an older lake like that come back. It's the habitat, man. I did look for 5 bigger hogs online, and I did find them. That's all I got for you this week. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Seafoam. Go to bassblaster.com or .rocks to sign up for all the details in that email. See you next week. God bless you.